Welcome back to the Sports Block, another edition here from the house. I want to bring back in my crew, Mr. Ryan Magnuson and Mr. Ryan Grover. Welcome back, gentlemen. How are we doing tonight?
Happy
Thank you.
Sunday.
Yeah, doing good, man.
Sports
So
is
as
back.
it is. So we got started with a little golf and a little NASCAR and locally, and some soccer internationally, and so it's getting there. But I think the real topic we need to discuss first is the new do, man. Talk to me about the new thing going up here in the dome.
Well,
Talk us through it.
I wanna christen this Amanda's Revenge, even though she tried her hardest, and actually, I mean, the end result, it looks great. She did a great job. Uh, we tried to do a fade to start. That didn't go too great. Not because she couldn't do it. I believe that she could do it. She was just scared for my safety in my head, which that's very cute, and I love her so much.
I didn't realize the fade had came back, man. You trying to put like the Z in the head or the G?
Yeah, you
What was
should
the
get
plan
creative
there?
with it. Get creative.
I like to go hard part, so that's about as creative. Why are you
Yeah,
laughing? That's real.
I want full Jersey Shore. I want full Jersey Shore hair next week when we come back. I want
I
some,
got I
creative
got too
piece up
much
in there.
I got too much facial hair for that. I can't pull that look off, man.
So another fun topic here tonight, guys. This thing continues going on with everything that's being affected, obviously, with the high schools, and college has been shut down for a while now. But like you said, we're finally starting to get some sports back. So we're kind of looking forward, I think, to see what baseball is going to do now. And I know NBA is continuing to talk, and NHL is continuing to talk, and hopefully this door opening, as long as it's safe, is going to bring us back to where we want to be.
Yeah, I think we'll be talking to part of our conversation with our guest tonight will be about as things come back, how different will they be? I mean, as I was watching the UFC last night, it was surreal. I mean, I was so happy to be watching live sports again, but uh, you don't realize how different it's going to be in an empty arena when Bruce Buffer's still trying to get everyone amped up.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, it was weird. It was awkward. I mean, it was surreal. So I think that's even for sports without that type of showmanship, there's still going to be a level of just surreal quality to it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the weirdness.
yeah, and definitely to echo what you said. I was watching some German soccer, some Bundesliga, and if Maldo, if you could take us back to that three shot, this was what the benches look like. All of them wearing masks, and then the bench, quote unquote bench, was 6 feet apart per person, and
Wow.
yeah, it was strange. And I know we talk a little bit about kind of what that looks like moving forward here in more of a real sense with Coach Ray, but seeing it on TV for the first time, that was very strange.
Can you imagine being the underdog in a situation with no fans?
Yeah,
The team that feeds off the crowd, especially for a sport like basketball, that goes back and forth, and
right.
one of those on any given night when somebody gets hot, but that adrenaline flow that you get from that packed house, that crowd, that's going to be very, very different in terms of the role of the underdog when you don't have that to feed off, when basically your whole life you played in that scenario.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that, and too with like just a home field, home ice advantage. I'm thinking about word on the street is that hockey's about to come back here with something like a 2014 playoff. I mean, it's
hmm
insane. It's going to be super exciting. But like you said, I mean, I'm a diehard Hurricanes fan. The playoff experience last year, there's just nothing like a playoff atmosphere. And the Hurricanes' home record in playoff games was pretty different than their away record, and I know they fed off the crowd. They talked about it. So how that changes, does that make the games even crazier when we're coming back from such a long layoff?
yeah, yeah. I mean, the new reality is going to be weird, and it's going to be different. which is a lot of a good portion of our conversation with Coach Robbie Wray had to deal with. So with that, what I'll do is we're going to send it on over to our segment with Robbie Wray, and we'll get this show started. Don't go anywhere, guys. You're watching the Sports Block. Welcome, everybody, back to the Sports Block. Right now, we are joined by a staple of the Mustang community, not only serving as its current athletic director, but also part of its 2013 Hall of Fame class. We have Coach Robbie Wray with us. How you doing today, Coach?
Doing great, Ryan. How you guys doing tonight?
Can't complain. Happy Sunday to you.
Yes, sir. To you too, buddy.
Well, I see you out on the field where a lot of people currently want to be. I think. Can you just kind of talk us through to kick this off? Kind of what a day in the life of athletic director with no sports is like.
Well, Ryan, I'll be quick to tell you. My wife says she thinks I'm busier now than I was when we were in school every day. But I tell her now she just to see all the little things that comes with the job of being the athletic director, from field maintenance to sand guys showing to electricians to sound to everything that's happening here to maintain it, and hoping that the minute we're allowed to go back, everything here is ready and better than it was when these kids left on the 13th of March.
Yeah, and tomorrow was supposed to be the first day back for school, but that's obviously since been scrapped. In this meantime, you're talking about all the kind of different aspects that you're trying to juggle right now. Are you doing this with a small staff? Are you trying to do this on your own? Like, what does that process look like?
Well, it is a small staff for sure. Not many people are allowed to be on campus during this time, so it's me and a few maintenance guys and a couple of coaches that are here doing some of the mowing and weed eating and trimming and things of that nature. But most of the things we're doing are typical field maintenance, working on sprinkler systems, sprinkler heads, and other things in the gym, the sound system in the gym, and just all kinds of the laundry equipment in the laundry room, just all little things that go with it. But most of the time it's me and one coach and me and some maintenance guys here on campus.
Keeping you busy for sure.
Yes, sir. But I wouldn't have it any other way.
That's right. I'd rather be busy than not, for sure.
Yes, sir.
So, Coach, I was able to ask a couple spring athletes on our first show, gave them the opportunity to kind of predict what their seasons would have looked like. I want to give you the opportunity as well as the athletic director. What do you think some of these spring teams would have looked like had they finished their seasons out?
Well, anybody that's paid attention over here knows we got a couple of spring teams that always go deep in the playoffs, whether it be softball this year or baseball, men's lacrosse, girls soccer, girls lacrosse. All these teams here in the spring were, to use a term, stacked and ready to go. It's just one of those things that our spring sports is usually very strong, and this year was going to be the same. We were excited. I think our men's lacrosse team was in the top ranked in the nation. Our women's soccer team, I don't think they had given up a goal. Softball had given up one run through 4 games. So there were a lot of positive signs for these kids. And then March 13th happened.
Yeah, and what type of message did you have for some of these athletes, these students, when it did happen? What did you say to them?
Well, Ryan, I think you guys know me. It was really hard it's probably as hard on me as it is these kids. And I just told them, I said, we're coming back. We're coming back in, at the time it wasn't even May, it was April. April 6th, which would have been during our spring break, was our initial return day. And then it got pushed to May 18th. I just told them, we're like, keep preparing, keep working. We're going to come back. We're going to come back. Up until the governor made that decision a couple of weeks ago that closed us down, I was remaining hopeful. We're planning and still had games on the schedule and on the calendar. probably the hardest thing I had to do personally, was to delete those things, because it hurts us all the coaches, the trainers, the players. It has an impact on all of us. It really does.
Yeah, and I think we were really that's a very real similar experience on the flip side to what the students had. And we were all kind of taken aback at the positive attitude that each one of them showed in their current situation. Is that something you experienced as well?
100%. The maturity that the kids handled it with, the coaches handled it with, and the parents handled it with has been unbelievable, because they have every right to go through all the emotions that they did, and to not handle it that way. But I can speak for this school. It was handled in a very mature way by everyone, in a very tough time. But of course, each time we didn't know it was final until a couple of weeks ago. And that's really when it was the toughest on me. And I'm sure these kids, when they get that call that it's done, that's hard to handle. That's hard to handle. I mean, most of us know when our seasons are over, and they went through 6 weeks of unknowing, not knowing what their season was going to be, what was going to happen to their team, or their teammates, and their seasons. One of the things I told them, and your heart really hurts for the seniors, but at the end of the day, the freshmen and the sophomores and the juniors only got 2 weeks of a season as well. They're all going to get shorted what we know traditionally is a high school career. They're going to get, a piece of one. And I hate the word unfair. I don't usually use that, but what happened is unfortunate and really unfair for these kids and everything they've lost, not just athletics.
Let me ask you this real quick from a coaching perspective. First off, like what were your coaches doing right now this spring in terms of preparing for what would have been this week to eventually gone back and compete again? What conversations were some of your spring sport coaches having with their athletes to try to keep them positive and try to plan to get back to compete again?
So we were under a few restrictions, as we all have been during this pandemic. And one of them was the coaches can meet with their kids virtually, just like we're doing this meeting. And they can give them workouts and they can give them things to do, but it has to be things they can do by themselves in their backyard. And in some sports, that's easily doable, but it's not necessarily the case in all sports. You kind of need somebody to catch that ball when you throw it, or hit the ball back to you if you're a tennis player or whatever. But our coaches, our spring coaches, were posting videos, sending kids workouts, trying to keep kids in the best physical condition they could keep them in, while still maintaining social distance and doing things the way we're being allowed to do them at this time. All of our coaches were sending kids information, workouts on a daily or weekly basis the whole time.
Yeah, and staying with that coaching theme, how are you drawing on your past coaching experience to for lack of a better phrase, kind of pick up the pieces after you did know that would be it, and how are you gonna how have you been able to kind of set the stage for maybe the hope for summer workouts and into the following school year?
Well, there are two things that every coach hates to do. One is cut players, and two is tell your players that the season's over. And so when we had to tell them it was over, as far as picking up the pieces, the things that one of the things is all of us here had each other's backs and support and reaching out to these kids. The thing we're getting into, the later we get with this, is as you mentioned, Ryan, are summer workouts. You got basketball that does scrimmages, and you got football that does 7-on-7. And now I'm transitioning to those guys. Now that spring is officially ended for us, and we're moving forward with fall and winter teams now. They're doing the same thing. They're having virtual meetings and starting to prepare their kids, and in hopes of when things get better in our state, we're able to get back to what we know as normal. The not knowing is the hardest part for all of us, but at the same time, it has allowed us to get better and reflect on some things we need to do different here. and be better at as an athletic director, as a coach, as an athlete. We have several coaches who have completed some certifications that we're going to be posting this week, taking courses, taking workshops, doing all kinds of things to make themselves a better coach and a better person. And I've joined in a lot of that with them. And it's been interesting to see them doing things virtually. I've joined in a few of the team meetings, and I told them to invite me because, to me, just to see the kids, just like I'm seeing you guys, that's good for the heart. It's good for these guys and girls. It's good for all of us to see each other through this computer screen. It's really nice to see the kids and the positive energy they're bringing and the excitement they're bringing for the fall and summer workouts, especially not knowing. They're still energetic and ready and preparing.
And one thing I did want to tag on to the end of that, just if you could enlighten us, because I'm not sure of the process. What does the framework for those decisions for summer workouts and so forth? Obviously, it comes from the Central Commission, but as it trickles down to the different counties and the different leagues within those counties, is the message stay the same and you follow the kind of the central directive, or even broken down by county? Is there some leeway as far as anything you can do there?
So you hit the nail on the head, Ryan. We are all under the direction of our governor first, then the NCHSAA, then Wake County Public Schools, then Middle Creek High School, as far as here at our school. And every level, there are decisions, and every level, they could be different. Just because the NCHSAA released this week that June 1st, we can start workouts again. Well, first of all, the rule has always been not until school is out, which is June 12th, I think, for us. That sure got some people excited this week here. They were calling me, hey, can we start June 2nd? Well, that's, when they released that June 1st date, what they didn't say was, if your school system is finished with school, if the governor releases restrictions, if your school system allows it, and then there again, even if your school allows it. And right now, it's not, it's not allowed here in Wake County. Could it happen in another county where they don't have as many cases? Yeah, it could. It drove me this week when I started figuring all this out to start looking at our state and the cases around our state. And there are several counties in the western mountains. They don't have any cases. So there'll be no reason that can't get back sooner than some of those of us in these harder hit counties.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's been really interesting to watch because it's such a regional thing. How many cases do you have? How badly are you affected? And to look at even professional sports as a sort of pathway forward for high school sports, collegiate sports. So in Germany, I know just on Saturday that their top professional soccer league came back for the first time, but with some pretty interesting rules in place that changed the dynamics of how the game was actually played, and things like, after you scored a goal, you couldn't celebrate with your team. You weren't supposed to, come close and high five and that kind of things. I think all but one of the teams respected that and did just that. So do you think that's something that's going to work its way over here? Do you think that when sports, do come back, that there might be in-game type changes like that?
I think there will be a lot of changes in our world, and certainly on the playing fields or courts. You will see it be different than what we're used to seeing. My hope is that it doesn't change the game, and kids are not doing things that change the game, like not tackling or not taking that charge in basketball or whatever it may be. Making the tag on the baseball field or softball field. I just hope it doesn't cause us to not play the game the way we should be playing the game. I do anticipate a lot of changes in our schools, on our athletic fields. We don't know yet what any of those changes are going to be, as far as even from an administrative standpoint, from athletics. One of the big things is not touching things other people touch. Well, one of the things I think about is how we're going, there are many different things that are going to change for us. I just hope that what you said doesn't happen is on the field. It changes the game. I understand some changes is not high-fiving and celebrating and and all that. But I just hope it doesn't change the way the game is supposed to be played.
Yeah, I think we would all echo that, right?
It's I'm not a huge fan of big celebrations anyway, personally. So for I think if you score a touchdown, that's what, if you're on offense, you're supposed to do. If you make a 3-pointer, that that's what if you shoot it, you're supposed to make it, right? I'm not a huge fan of celebrating everything we do. Celebrate at the end of the game with you and your teammates when you win. But I do think you'll see some of the celebrations, a lot of things we do in our daily life change, and it's going to be hard for kids. And you said the one team over there, everybody but one team did it. It's going to be really hard for us to change. It's hard for me. I see Coach Petty. I want to shake his hand. That's going to be hard not to do that, and it's going to be hard for these kids on these fields to not want to high five their teammate or hug their teammate or jump up in their arms. I mean, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, and what I hope doesn't happen is people start screaming, "Why'd he do that?" And that he shouldn't be doing that. I mean, that's a natural reaction to be happy for each other, and I hope we don't get into all that criticism over teenagers showing excitement over something that's exciting to them. So, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for a lot of us. It's going to be hope people allow for that adjustment period.
Yeah,
Coach, let me
that's
put you
a great
back
point.
on the game changing stuff too, about affecting the game, because the other thing that I know is being tossed around, and I know there's no answer for this yet, but especially difficult it would be on the high school level. But is there a consideration of moving sports to different seasons, you think, especially the contact sports, whereas, a golf or tennis or maybe even a track and field, those sports you can do with less contact, certainly very different for a football or a basketball. And, the discussion of this potentially cranking back up in the winter, is there any discussion, or are you hearing any noise that they could move, let's say, football to the spring or basketball to the spring and move a spring sport to the fall or anything along those lines?
We've not heard any talk of that. I'm not telling you that it hadn't been talked about. I'm not privy to what Q Tucker and the NCHSA and their board, the discussions they're having. I'm sure they're looking at a lot of options. There are some states. There have been a lot of announcements from some states. I think Louisiana this week said their kids can go back to July 1st for fall sports. Indiana is going. Someone there said they were going to start back in July, and I think Ohio. Somebody said there was a draft out of flipping, like what you were talking. We have not heard any of those discussions. I have not heard any of those discussions. I think all options are on the table at this point. I don't know if that's a realistic option, but I think they're really looking at a lot of options, because I think our state and Q Tucker and the NCHSA and our governor, they all understand, and in Wake County, I'll even say our superintendent, they understand what high school athletics mean to the high school experience. So I think they want to get the kids back out as quick as we can, as safe as we can, and may it mean some changes to what we're used to as far as scheduling and moving schedules and changing schedules. And I think there's probably some of that talk going on. Just hasn't come our way yet.
Coach, I understand that you probably don't want to make any predictions because no one, even from the top down, really has a consistent message. But what would you feel would be kind of the best transition from where we are now, and let's say we're hitting our goals the way we want to do? What do you think is a kind of a ideal situation for sports, whether it be at Middle Creek or just in general around Wake County? How do you think it's going to transition back to somewhat of a schedule? I won't say normal.
Well, if we hit the targets and we hit the numbers and we get to stage 3, I think my projection, I looked at that, was mid to late July. And I hate to say I'm one of the old guys, but I'm one of the old guys here. We used to, back in my day, we started high school football August 1st and played, in 3 weeks. I think our kids, I think every kid and every team and every coach are preparing their kids to come back, and most kids are going to be ready to come back I think if we could come back by mid-July, mid to late July even, I think everything could be, as far as getting the games and things in, if we're hitting our targets and the numbers are where our governor and our state need them to be, I feel like mid to late July could be a target date. But that's going to depend on those numbers and what our governor says.
Yeah, and there's a lot of moving parts too, right? So we have you say a mid July start date, but then you're trying to ramp up something that typically would start. I don't know the exact date for when football can start ramping up workouts into more of an official sense. But how much time do you think sports need to get up to speed and to play the sport safe and injury free?
Well, I hate to say football's, they usually have a week and a half before they scrimmage, and then they have 2.5 weeks before they play a game. Most sports, there are some sports and some coaches at our school and other schools, they don't do anything with their kids during the summer. Not football. All your football teams are working all year, but your tennis and your golf, some of those kids are not really doing a whole lot until August 1st, and then they're playing by August 17th. So a couple, 2-3 weeks. Like I said, football usually goes about 9 or 10 days, and then they start scrimmaging. 10 or 11 days, and they start scrimmaging. And I know that's only a 30-minute scrimmage, but it's contact and it's physical. And the other thing is, it's hot as heck in August, and so those kids, hopefully they'll start working. Hopefully they're working now, but hopefully by mid-July would be a good timeline to start getting them back together and start getting them in shape and condition for the outdoor sports. The indoor sports a little less maybe because they're not dealing with the heat of August. We a lot of times in August we mandate breaks for the teams and the officials just because it's so hot at 6:30, 7 o'clock.
Right.
And so the first official date is scheduled for August 1, and that hasn't changed yet. But you guys know, y'all have been athletes. You know that these guys they're going 3-4 days a week during the summer, and going to team camps and playing 7-on-7s and soccer workouts and volleyball in the gym going at it. So they work all summer. But I think a couple of weeks will be enough time.
Yeah, I think so. I was reading an article just the other day with another a high school football player from another school, and he just mentioned that at this point he's because of the situation, he's able to work out a crazy amount during the day that he's way far ahead physically of where he thought he would be because he's putting in this extra time because he has the opportunity to. So do you think a lot of students are taking advantage of that, and what type of dynamic do you think that would have on a sport like football?
I do think there are a lot of kids taking advantage of it, Ryan. I guess if there's any good out of this pandemic we're living through right now, guys, a lot more people outside doing active things. Up here at the park, walking, families out on the side, on the sidewalk walking, and kids. One of the cool parts for me has been, a lot of them post stuff on Twitter, and I've seen a lot of our kids working out on Twitter, and we do have a lot of kids that are doing that. My fear is the couple of kids that are not, and then they come in and try to get adjusted to the heat in July and August. But it does put some ownership on the kids to be getting ready, and I feel like most of our kids here know that. The thing I would say to them is, if they're out working out, be sure they hydrate and take care of their bodies, eat properly. Don't abuse your body with bad stuff as far as foods and sodas and stuff. But prepare your body as well while you're out doing physical activities. One thing, but if you're not eating and drinking properly, it's really not going to make a whole lot of difference come Thursday or Friday night out here on this football field or soccer field when it's 1,000 degrees and you're cramping up over here on the sideline. If they would start that process now too, it'd be a whole lot better for them in July and August.
Yeah, no doubt. So before we let you go, one more question here. What could something like Ryan or I's, a alumni, part of the Middle Creek family. Is there anything that someone like us could do to help out the Middle Creek athletic department right now?
Well, the one thing I'm going to always say is just your support, and being supportive of what me, the coaches, the admin, the athletes here are trying to do. We don't know what the fall is going to bring for us financially. We don't know whether we're going to have football. We don't know whether we're going to have games. We don't know whether we're going to be allowed to have fans. Now, with that being said, I'm not saying that we're not going to be allowed to do those things. I don't want anybody to hear this and say, "Oh, Coach Wray said we're not going to do that." A lot of our sponsors and a lot of our donors here have shut down their businesses, and just to give you guys and the people that watch this an idea, it cost us about $1,000 to hold a home football game. That's our cost, and many people don't realize what goes into holding games and hosting games and the expenses and the time that go in. So support us. Come see us. Come by and help. Come. And of course, people that are willing to sponsor and help and get involved with our booster club. Obviously, that's a big one. But more so to me, for the alumni, is to come back and support these kids that are here working. The main thing we need to do is the first time we have some stuff is let these kids know what they mean to us and what they mean to this school and this community and to you as alumni. Be proud to be a Mustang and support these kids because they're currently, they're here. They're our current Mustangs, and let's support them and let them know that you're there for them, and get involved with us and help us out.
Yeah, definitely. Coach Wray, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to continue to support you. I think I can speak for all of us and say that we are looking forward to getting back there and being able to support you guys. So thank you so much. With that, I'm going to throw it to a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on the Sports Block.
Back to the Sports Block. My name is Harrison Eaton. I'm a commentator, and today joining us we have Middle Creek's track coach, Coach Fisher. Coach Fisher, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, hanging in there, trying to make it one day at a time.
So my first question for you is: have you taken any action, regarding communication with your athletes, with their season's been cut short? I just want to know if you've had any interaction with them.
I have no. Once everything went down, continue to send out. I use Reminds to send it out, remind the kids, and trying to keep them updated with the information that I get, but then also just trying to let them know what they can do workout wise, and all those things. So I know a lot of them like to do their own thing too, but also just sending some stuff out there for the kids who may not know what to do or how to do certain things to try to give them some information as well.
So now regarding your information that you give out to kids that might not do it on their own, what kind of plans are you giving them?
Varies, depends on the event. So I got some throwers who I'll send them videos of kind of professional throwers, stuff like that. Some of my sprinters, I'll give them kind of general workouts that they might be able to do in their house since they can't really get out and run on a track or anything like that. So kind of your higher intense type stuff, some more individualized stuff kind of based off of the kids that reply back to me and are seeking information.
Yeah, that's good. That's good that all your athletes are staying involved and trying to stay involved, even though their season got cut short. So now, when their season got cut short the week of March 9th, where it was announced that the spring sports would be delayed until April 6th, and then it got extended. Now, what was your reaction? What was your, plan around, getting to that point and having that mindset that you would come back
Yeah, no, that was the original mindset was, hey, we're going to be able to come back. It's going to be a shorter season, but see what we can do there. So it was one of those trying to keep the kids actively involved in what's going on, and knowing that that's tough when you can't see them person to person and stuff like that. So just trying to keep them motivated and, again, kind of a positive mindset since there's a lot of negativity that goes on with a lot of this stuff right now. So just trying to keep that positive mindset of, hey, we're going to have something here in the end. We're going to be able to get back together, get on the track, and have a season.
Yeah, nobody, no matter the sport, expected it to happen, and you always got to keep that positive mindset moving forward. Now, speaking of moving forward, have you discussed a plan with any of your fellow coaches or athletes about moving on to next year?
We have. So I've met with a lot of the other coaches that I have. So I got 3 other coaches with me and just talking with them about kind of what our plan is going forward. And one of those where sad to see with some of the seniors and not being able to kind of work with them this year. But again, one of those, all right, how can we move forward? What are some things that we can do potentially next year? If we are in a similar situation, what can we do to where we can keep them motivated? What can we do to keep them engaged in what's going on rather than just sorting things out and kind of go on that route. So we've also used a lot of this time for our own education. So we've done a lot of stuff online, trying to get our own stuff. So just trying to improve upon our training plans and things like that as we go through some of this to try to improve how we can as coaches, but then relay that to the kids even next year.
So now going back to the point that before this got cut short, how was that your season looking like? Was it look promising? Look good? Were you guys gonna make a run at a title?
We were looking decent. So yeah, no, we were going to be able to do fairly well on the guy side. The girls, we were short on numbers a little bit, but the guy side, we had the numbers that we needed, and we had key spots where we had kids that were fighting for conference titles. We had guys that were fighting for state championships. I think when we finished out the SeaWell, when we got cut short, we had a number 3 kid in the state currently in the 400 with Elias Barton. So, I mean, he last year finished 4th in the 400 at the state meets. I mean, we had kids that were fighting for a state title potentially for that spring season. So it was heartbreaking to see them not be able to have that opportunity. But also one where both of them are juniors. We had a thrower as well that placed at the state meet. So hopefully they are able to come back and be able to do some stuff next year as well. But we also had some seniors who were doing very well as well. Lauren Johnson on the girls' side going to UNC Charlotte. She was looking to have a great year and continue to break her school records this year as well, and trying to break even a few more school records that she was gunning for this year. So we were going to have a pretty good season. We had some good talent, and it was tough to see all that kind of disappear very quickly.
So you mentioned Lauren Johnson going to Charlotte next season to pursue her athletic career and academic career. Is there any advice that you'd give juniors that got their season cut short that is a very key recruiting time? So what advice would you give them that are looking to play at the next level?
Reach out. It's one of those where pretty much everybody across the country is in the same boat. So one of those, reach out to the college coaches, reach out to the people that you know and at the college level, and even figure out kind of what colleges you may want to go to and start searching some of that stuff. But yeah, because you weren't able to show them what you can do as a junior during this season, you got to use the times and the work ethic that you had from your sophomore year with that to kind of entice some of that. So that junior year is a big year for the recruiting process, but it's also one where because you couldn't showcase it on the track or on the field, having to doing more work, reaching out and kind of putting together some emails and some flyers and promote yourself. So as hard as that can be at times, but something that they would have to do if that's something that they do want to pursue at the next level.
Yeah, definitely want to have that mindset, that positive mindset, and keep going forward rather than backwards. You take the positive out of this and the negative. So now for seniors, obviously some of them aren't going to the next level and some of them will. Is there any special things that you guys are doing for them and or a message you want to tell them?
Me and the other coaches are still working on some of that. I know usually when we have our senior banquet or our end of year banquet, we try to do something special for them. So still kind of waiting to hear what all we are allowed to do and what we aren't allowed to do with certain things, as school and the county send out various things and stuff like that. But one thing I would love to say to the seniors is just thank you for your time. I've enjoyed working with you. Don't be strangers. Come back, say hello. And if you need anything, let me know. So I enjoyed the time that I did have with you, and we'll continue to move forward.
Of course, there's no timetable to get back to a normal, state of whatever happens, but this is obviously going to change the entire outlook of the country and how we function as a society. But once you get back to a somewhat normal, what ways do you think that that's going to affect your track season?
I mean, it's one where I guess with that, the joys of track is we can social distance. So a lot of these sports where you have the contact and things like that, it's more of an individual type sport. Um, so I know I've read various things out there where kind of your cross country and your tracks and your golfs and tennis and things like that, where you're not next to somebody per se and you can social distance with that. So on the positive side, I think track wise is one of those where we will be able to do some of those social distancing if that's put in place and some of those things. So it's an easier one to kind of go with what the country's going with in terms of some of the regulations and stuff that they're putting out there. But the changes are, I mean, obviously, how do you run with a mask on if you got to put a mask on, and adding in with some of those things and how that changes. So I don't know what's going to happen with all those. You're not going to be able to shake hands with your competitors afterwards because, again, the physical contact, stuff like that. So some of the sportsmanship things that you have that you would do throughout it kind of may disappear. But I think competing wise, we're still able to kind of compete because there's no physical contact, there's none of that, and you can social distance.
Yeah, like you said, the golfs and the cross country and the track are very easy to social distance, but like you said, with the masks, it's kind of a barrier, in a way. But hitting back at the recruiting aspect, as mentioned earlier, how does the NCAA's decision to grant spring athletes an extra year of eligibility affect the recruiting aspect?
That's going to put a challenge on some of the kids that may be trying to get in that next year because, again, they're losing the kids that were there that the colleges already know. Now they have that extra year of eligibility, so now essentially they lose almost a year of recruiting that they have to do. So it's one where it's going to put a tighter window on what kind of athletic funds they may have for those incoming kids because now they have these kids that they've had and they enjoy and they've been working with them and they know what they're getting from them. Whereas when you're bringing in a kid, you may not know exactly what you're getting. So it is going to make it a little bit tougher on those juniors that are coming in that following year because, again, the colleges may not have to do as much recruiting because they can still keep the kids on.
So now, when we get back to the normal daily basis, and we're back at school, and you guys are running again, what are you most excited to get back to?
Just seeing the kids, seeing them continuing to improve, seeing them continue to work hard, and seeing their hard work pay off. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things I've missed the most is being able to physically see my kids and be with them. It's one thing to see them face to face on a computer, but it's a whole nother thing to be face to face in real life with them. So even went out to the senior thing yesterday where we handed out the signs and stuff like that, and just being able to conversate with them one-on-one, being able to see them and say, I miss you. I wish you the best. Just that in and of itself is touching. That's what I've missed the most through kind of all of this is that being with them, seeing them improve, and being able to help them improve as they go on.
So now you mentioned the virtual, and you're seeing your kids through a computer screen and not physically. You are also a PE teacher, so how does that affect your virtual learning? How are you adapting to that?
We've kind of geared most of our learning PE wise to kind of rules, regulations, and some of those things, and trying to have the kids putting up videos, whether it's us or putting up YouTube videos or whatever it may be, to where they can see how to perform some of these activities, how to perform some of these things. But it's been very difficult to see them physically perform some of these activities. And then if we do some of that, adding in some of the time limits that we may have. So, I mean, being able to see the kids do push-ups and sit-ups and all those things if we're doing those, or perform a volleyball hit bump or hit or what have you, relying on kids to have equipment, relying on kids to have access to the technology to do it. So that's something that's been a challenge for us as well, definitely. So it's not an easy thing, but we're trying to give our students as well as our athletes kind of that opportunity to still self-improve if they have the capability.
Yeah, I know. I'm also one of your members of your class, and it's been different. It's not a full class. You're giving us some lessons based off different sports that we most likely would have done in your class, and even though that it's not the same, nothing's the same anymore these days. It's kind of nice to have that aspect and stay active and be healthy through this. We'd like to thank Coach Fisher once again for joining us. My name's Harrison Eaton, and we will be right back with the Sports Blog.
Welcome back to the Sports Block. I'm Charlie Reeder, and today we are going to be interviewing J. Mike Blake from High School OT and a teacher from Cardinal Gibbons. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, leading off this interview, I just wanted to ask you, as a high school sports reporter, how has it been reporting with no sports going on?
It's been very different, especially for me. What I usually do for high school OT is write columns, cover state championship events or big playoff games, and that was kind of all taken away. So I'm trying to still pitch in on a few big things that high school OT is doing, and giving as much feedback and input I can from my experience previously working in papers. So one thing right now is the voting totals for high school teams are done. I helped kind of in some categories we didn't have enough finalist nominations, so I kind of named some people that could be good finalists there before we started the voting. And then now we can't do spring sports all East and all West teams, which we were trying to do in every sport this year. So we're going to actually convert those into all senior teams. So we're still looking for nominations, and there's some that I'm kind of familiar with that I can start to put in on these various teams I work with Nick, or in some cases with a Zach Adams or a Joel Bryant, and trying to put together. But now this year we're going to keep it up. We're going to keep the tradition going. We don't want to skip a year. But we're going to basically honor the seniors because they've put in the work. You've got 3 years of a resume, of a track record, and accomplishments, and we want to some ways like honor that, even if we're not able to do it in the traditional all team based on how you did that season.
Yeah, that's awesome. You guys have been doing a really good job with all that advertising. I feel like I saw a lot of those high school OT finalists on social media in the past couple of weeks. And I personally voted for all of them, so it's good to know that you guys put that out there because it's a big deal.
Yeah, it was unique this year. This is the first year high school OT has kind of expanded into the western part of the state. So we had we had a lot of vote totals from places we're not, we haven't been used to covering teams or schools in the Triad or in the Charlotte area. And this year they got a little bit of, we saw there will be some winners from that side of the state this year. So the official winners will be announced, a special show, I believe it's May 29th. So later this month. But it was there was a lot of schools that really got behind their people and got the vote out for their communities, which is what happened last year as well. It's interesting. The vote totals, it could be a really small school. We've had 1A schools that, there may be 500 people in that school, but they and their moms and their dads, and they all voted every single day, and they won won some categories last year. And this year we kind of see that again. It doesn't matter where the school is or how big it is. There's so much support for people wanting to support their classmates or their coaches, or there's categories for band and mascots and game of the year and things like that. So it was really neat to see kind of all those votes pouring in for different parts of the state.
Exactly. And times like these, I feel like everyone's kind of working together as one for the better. So, also in sports, hearing anything from others, maybe at high school or T or elsewhere, about what we can see coming in the future?
The good news is, if anybody in the state knows, it's Nick Stevens. He has broken every big story on this since since it really started rolling when basketball got shut down. So he'll have a report probably next week on what the fall could look like. There is a first step was taken, which is now the association has ended its dead period. But now that all that really does is just shift the responsibility to whether or not you're going to be able to practice, whether or not you're going to be able to play games. Now it's going to be more on the in the judgment of either the state superintendent making that call, or possibly the individual school districts, which will be interesting because football coaches like their practices, and if one
Mhm.
county is able to go, if they get the leeway from the state that says you can make that decision for your county, and these other counties are going to make their own decisions, then you could have certain coaches, and maybe in the same conference where one coach isn't able to practice with his team until August, one has been practicing since the middle of June. Who knows which way it will go? But I think that's going to be the next thing that we really look forward, or can be looking for in the near future. What I'm most interested about, and one thing that I really want Nick just to go ahead and tell me what he knows. Like, I want him to find out the story right now, because he's more connected than I am. Being a teacher now, I mostly this is my main focus is making sure I'm doing what I need to do for my students. But figuring out, okay, how's the social distancing stipulations and regulations, does that mean this sport can work in the spring? Are there some spring sports that aren't contact sports that can be moved to the fall? Are we even allowed to do that? Because technically,
Yeah.
you probably have to you'd have to redo your state constitution for the athletic association, which that's going to be tough to do. But I think if you went to a vote, people would want to would want that flexibility. So that's the one thing I'm looking forward to is figuring out, okay, if what are the different possibilities if the social distancing aspect of it, we still have to deal with that stipulation, because that's going to be the biggest hurdle left, I think. It sounds like people are optimistic that some students may be able to come to the schools. It's going to look different, and a lot of people are saying, whether that means a couple of days a week or a few days a week, who knows? Possibilities are
Yeah.
endless, right? But all that's going to depend on social distancing, and in sports, really, that's their biggest hurdle into getting back out there is what's going to be allowed and what's not going to be allowed.
Yeah, personally, as a golfer, I know a lot of us were disappointed to hear the end of the season because, without no bias, golf is a sport, where there's definitely less contact, if any at all. And so we were, not happy about that. But then you have to take into account other sports, like football, where everyone's making contact all the time, and definitely will be, they might come down to only specific sports being played. I've heard a bunch of, rumors and stuff about that. And I guess it might have to get to the state level.
Yeah, and Nick has talked about football season, and that's not a like people care more about football thing. If there was a roundtable that he hosted with athletic directors from almost every corner of the state, 4A, 3A, 2A, 1A schools, and all of them were like, hey, if there's no football season, we can't really fund sports because some counties have to pay for their gas. Some counties have to pay, like Wake County, the travel, their ADs were saying the travel's taken care of. You don't have to pay mileage. But some counties make the high school pay for mileage. Some counties, uh, they have to raise their own funds for coaching salaries. It is all over the board when you think about 100 different counties and even more school districts. Um, but all of them said, hey, football, between the ticket sales and the concessions, even if we only have 5 to 6 home games, that's anywhere from 60 to 80% of our athletic budget for the year. So if you're not playing in the fall, you got to try to play in the spring, or else nothing's really going to make financial, you're going to be shedding money, and that's not going to be good for anyone. So that's why football is kind of coming into focus here. It sounds like people are they're kind of leaning towards, look, I'd rather play in the spring with a full crowd than play with social distancing stipulations in the fall. So we'll see which direction that goes. But when you start thinking about 80% of your athletic budget coming from a handful of home games, and maybe a handful of JV home games as well, because those have more attendance than other JV sports, that goes such a long way. And who knows, there's going to be a ripple effect in the other sports too. People don't realize that the home team pays the referees for that game. So if you had $200 worth of tickets, and we'll say the referees, there's 3 of them, and they each get $100, and you have to go find an extra $100 to give the ref, and so you lost $100 on that game if you didn't sell any concessions. So if you're at a school that maybe 10 people go to your soccer games, which is not in Wake County, but some of the rural places, they lose these games. So the only thing that makes sense is to cut back on the season and play a shorter season to limit how much you're losing. So there's a lot of it's kind of crazy when you think about everything that kind of goes downstream, the kind of waterfalls from the what do you do with football question.
Yeah, and also, schools have to think, what's their policy going to be if a player does get the virus? What happens? Is the whole season get canceled, kind of how it all started with the NBA? Or do they just quarantine that person and continue to move on? Because, there have also been talks about later on in the year becoming kind of a reoccurrence of it as we head towards the winter. So there's a lot to think about. So I don't think you can expect a decision instantly.
Yeah, it'd be good to have those questions answered before we go, because that should be a school district question as well. What if a teacher gets it? What's the policy there? What are you doing? Because obviously, if a teacher can't be in their classroom for 2 weeks, that's a huge effect. And there are a lot of things that you have to do to try to sanitize and make sure everything is safe. Like, does everyone miss school the next day? A lot of these questions that I'm unsure about, and I'm glad that no one's asking me, to write a handbook on what we're going to do the next few months. But a lot of people who are paid to answer those questions are going to have to give that serious thought. So I think you're talking about, like, if a player gets it or a coach gets it, they're going to have to look at the academic side and take a page out of that playbook. But that playbook doesn't exist right now. So we'll hopefully these people will have a little bit more of protocols put into place, maybe by July, as superintendents get through graduation and then are able to focus all of their time and energy onto figuring out how to make fall work at every level. Because you got to also think we're focused on high schools, but superintendents got to figure out how you do social distancing at a K-5 when kindergartners don't know to keep their hands to themselves. Things like that. It's going to be so many things that they're going to have to focus their attention on here in the next little bit.
And as you talk about that, I'll switch the topic a little bit. You're a teacher at Cardinal Gibbons, and so I would like to ask, how has the whole remote learning been for you as a teacher?
It is. I give so much credit to our principal, our assistant principals, our leadership team, and getting us prepared, because that last week was actually very, very tense that we were in school. I'm not sure how it was for you guys. I'm sure you're the same way, but as an educator, you're sitting there thinking like, wow, tomorrow we could get an email that a student's parent, especially if you have students whose mom and dads are in healthcare industry, that has to be quarantined, or they test positive and all of a sudden we're not going to school the next day. So you're prepared for every day, like you may not be allowed in the building tomorrow. but we have a one-to-one laptop to student program. So this has always been there. It's been hard to um, expect remote learning with if we miss school for weather, because there's always going to be a kid that's like, the power didn't come on, for 2 or 3 days when we're out with a hurricane or we're out with for snow, and you kind of have to accept that answer to a certain degree. You have to trust them. But with this, we were at least equipped to start learning the very next day. So we had a previously scheduled teacher work day on Monday. That was kind of extra day for educators to prepare, and then we started back the classes that Tuesday. So we didn't miss a day, but it is tough, and you can start to sense a little fatigue as time went along. I got kind of sad, last week. It really started to sink in that all the students that I've so much enjoyed to interact with, the students I taught last year who mean so much to me, because last year was my first year teaching, and they were such an awesome group, and it made me really certain that this was the right thing that I should be doing in my life. I couldn't see them in the hallways anymore,
Yeah.
and I just started my own classes. You started to look at your assignments, and you're like, oh man, if this person missed this question or they didn't do this assignment the right way, but they clearly would have if we were in class together, or if they knew they could stop by after school to ask me a quick question, then this would have been taken care of. And now you're starting to see, I think, we have 2 weeks left of class now, but you've seen kind of there's been a bit of a fall off in enthusiasm, which is only natural, which is why I hope in the fall, we do have to do anything online, it is not 5 days a week, because it's just it's not optimal. And I do feel like our school prepared us for this as absolutely best they could, and I wish we'd only had to do it for about half the time, because I think you really start to realize I've never thought I had this many students sad about missing school, but I think everyone's in the same boat now, right? You realize what you had when it gets taken away from you. And that student to teacher interaction is something that was hit me hard, especially in the last few weeks. That you didn't even have a chance to say goodbye, or like, thank you class for for this year. We made it, or like, hey, the fourth quarter, we put it all together, and look where we ended up together as a group. And best of luck this summer, and all these other goodbye things you take for granted. All the poor seniors. I haven't taught any seniors yet, but my gosh, everything in high school is set up for those last couple months, right? You have all the senior events. That's the best part of school. Like, that's the reason I would have never graduated early if I had the option, or I think I did have the option to in high school, because you've worked 3.5 years for April and May, where you have senior this and senior that and prom this and like all these events, and now they're gone. And some districts I've heard are like leaving the door open to try to make up like prom and a graduation in like August and December. And I hope they're successful with that, because that has to be very difficult for them. If it's difficult for me as a teacher, I know it's got to be difficult for them as seniors, knowing how much these couple months had promised them.
Yeah, as a senior, I know it's been difficult looking at all the things you've been kind of waiting for. But another thing is, like, I don't think many people realize, the teachers are also being affected by this, not in like a crazy way, but you guys are also missing us too. It's not just the students seeing each other every day. You guys have all your friends and are missing the students, and you guys are also putting in all the work, still doing the teaching without the positives, it seems like. So I think you guys deserve a pat on the back going through all these tough times.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And for a lot of us, I have 3 young kids, ages they're about to be 6, 4, and 2 years old, respectively. So when you're at home with them, grading is a lot harder. You realize you had that kind of built-in time at school where you had a planning period, or you had the 30 minutes to an hour you could stay after school to knock out some grading, that you don't really have anymore, because you have to take care of them and make sure they're getting nap time. If they're older, you're still trying to manage to make sure they're on top of their schoolwork. So educators with students, like, this is really it's like someone throwing in a few extra balls to juggle that she already had going. And yeah, we're in this business because we like to help students. We're here for that experience, and none of us signed up for it to be online teachers, so that is tough. I haven't even said goodbye to a lot of teachers. There's some teachers who are very good friends. We texted here and there, but we're all busy trying to keep up with the grading and assignments and things like that. But we had two more months of fraternizing at the lunch table together, and now that's gone as well. So and then our coaches are definitely hurting, our spring sports coaches, and some are, I guess, those that kind of were able to have a game where they kind of realized we need to do our senior night stuff now. They're, at least they got that in, but there were some out there. If you look at the high school T kind of finalized the spring sports rankings, it's not a statement this was the best team in the state, but just kind of here's a snapshot of when the season ended. This is what the top 25 rankings were. There's some teams on there that didn't play, and so you had like South Granville softball. They are a 2A powerhouse. They've been to like a state title game or Final Four every year, and these seniors have been 4-year starters. And they had a few rainouts, and their senior season they went 0-0. And so there's just so many different experiences out there. It's really wild when you try to wrap your head around how the entire country is going through the same things that you've gone through, that I've gone through, that the people we've talked about are experiencing. But yeah, it is. I appreciate that. I'm trying to think. I'm already trying to think of the words I want to say to my students 2 weeks from now when it's our last online virtual meeting together, because usually I would have a little bit more of a speech in person. But there's a lot more to say now than what I thought I was going to say just in general. The typical end of year stuff. Now I have so much more to kind of tell them and what they kind of mean to me, since we didn't have that. That we kind of had a lot of stuff taken away from our in-class experience.
Definitely. Well, again, Mike, it was awesome hearing, from another perspective as both a sports reporter and also a teacher. You have a lot to say that not everyone in the sports industry does. So it was awesome talking to you, and I really appreciate everything that you told us today.
No, yeah, thanks for having me, and best of luck as you finish out the senior year. Always been a fan of the Sports Block's work. I go way back with Coach Petty and everything, and you guys do a fantastic job.
Well, we really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for tuning into the interview with J. Mike Blake. We'll be right back with the Sports Block.
Welcome back to the Sports Block at Home edition. We'd like to thank our 3 guests tonight, J. Mike Blake, Coach Mark Fisher, and Coach Robbie Wray. Thanks again for joining us, guys. It's been a fun show. It's been great conversations. I'm going to throw it to you two here for our final thoughts. Patty, any final words here?
I mean, always good to hear the insight of so many different views, from an athletic perspective as an athletic director, and then, moving over from a coach and then from a sports reporter / teacher. I think we continue to get some great interviews from some great individuals, and everybody seems to be on the same page. We just miss sports, and we miss the competition, and we miss so many great things in terms of teamwork and leadership and working towards common goals that athletics provide us that are really life skills. So, just great to hear all those perspectives and how everybody's really just keeping things positive until we can get back to doing what we love so much.
Yeah, and I think the diversity and the types of people that we've been bringing in these past few weeks really kind of show how this is affecting everybody, obviously. That goes without saying, but how everybody is trying to cope and move forward through this event, and echoing what Petty said, to bring back what we love to do so much.
Absolutely. I'm going to put a third stamp on that. Sports are coming back slowly. I don't care how weird it is or how different they are. Bring it back.
Yeah.
And with that, with that, thank you everyone for tuning in to another edition of the Sports Block. Tune in next week.